Well, good afternoon. Today, January 1st, 2026. It's not just New Year's Day, it's Public Domain Day 2026. I'm Sandy. I am doing a test stream right now. This is my first attempt to use StreamYard for a live stream from my desk. I live stream on location in different places around Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, wherever I am. I am a passionate hobby historian. I am a huge fan of historic architecture and historic preservation. And on this channel, the Primary Sources channel, this is where I publish instructional materials for other researchers, particularly family historians and genealogists. So over the years, I've compiled so much information, not just about my family, but about research in general in the area around Washington, D.C., Baltimore, all the places where my ancestors lived and worked and traveled, immigrated to. And I thought it would be kind of a shame if I didn't share it. And so here on this channel, the Primary Sources channel, I have posted a series of videos called Source Spotlight. And each of those videos kind of walks you through a different source of information, but not the usual sources of information for birth records or marriage records or the more common vital statistics that we look for as family historians. I'm sharing some of the more unique um, sources of information to tell a full story, not just the names and dates, but for example, where someone worked, where they may have traveled, hobbies that they had, sports they may have played, music that they liked, books that they read, um, those sorts of things that help us to tell a really full story, places where they went on vacation. So on this channel, you'll see a video about the National Park Service and all the resources there. You'll see also some pretty common places and important places like the British Library, but some uncommon places too, like the United States State Department and their diplomatic histories section and what that can help to tell us about our ancestors. So I welcome you to check out the videos on on this channel. I realize I haven't posted as frequently as I hoped to. I had hoped to post a video once a month. Edited videos are killing me. It just takes forever. It's much easier for me to grab my phone and go live. I usually go live on my other channel. I think I've now had exactly 1 year of live streaming from different locations. That was on December 28th. Just a few days ago, I had my 1 year on the other channel on Sandy Q, sort of my personal research log channel. But on this channel, this is where the instruction will be posted. I also have more detailed videos on research methodology. I have a series of videos on GPS, not the genealogical proof standard, but the global positioning system. GPS, the technology that's in our phones and in some cameras and in our cars, and how we can use that to tell the stories of our ancestors, how we can use that to gather information and to perfect the information that we're gathering. And then I'll also, from time to time, do a live stream from this channel. Um, on location, it's kind of limited for the purposes of instruction. This morning, I was at the Library of Congress on a very windy Capitol Hill this morning. I do apologize for the audio. It does clear up after a few minutes on the channel. The wind dies down a little bit. But I wanted to be at the Library of Congress today for Public Domain Day. A previous live stream, I visited the National Archives and Records Administration main building in Washington, D.C. during the government shutdown, just to talk about what was shut down and what was available for your research purposes. But this is just a test stream, and I'm just playing around with StreamYard today, but I will be here to chat about Public Domain Day 2026. This is an important day, and if you're a researcher like me, you've probably already gone to your favorite YouTuber sites or gone to, heard snippets on the news about what has come into the public domain today. There's also a really great website, and I'm going to test number one. I'm going to try to present my desktop and see if this works. Here we go. All right, so this is what I want to share. Let's see. I'm also watching this on my laptop. So let's see if this works. I'm sharing, yay, I'm sharing the Duke University Law School website on its um, Center for Copyright, Patent, Public Domain, etc. And they have a Public Domain Day website set up for 2026. You'll also see in the bottom right-hand corner, you can get to the past Public Domain Day archives, which is really fun. It's really fun to see if you don't see the work that you're looking for on the 2026 list, maybe it was released into the public domain sooner or earlier, I should say. But let's talk a little bit about what is the public domain. The public domain is the state of being, I'll say, for creative works when they're no longer restricted under the rules of copyright. And I am talking about the United States right now. I have no information, or I should say very little information about these protections in other countries. But today we're talking about the United States. The protection really boils down to common sense and the ability of a creator to own what he or she has put blood, sweat, and tears into in terms of creating a work of art, uh, a, a writing, music, sculpture, film, you name it. It makes sense that the person who created the work has the opportunity to keep it and to make sure it's used appropriately in how they wish. And so for a number of years, they maintain the ownership of that work of art, that creative work. Well, there's also some public benefit, right? There's civilization at large and society at large benefits from art. And so we don't want works of art handed down, or the rights and the permissions handed down from generation to generation, because we want the public at large to benefit. Hello, Sahel. Nice to see you. Hey, can you tell me how my audio is? Because this is a test stream. This is my first test. This is my first stream using Streamlabs for this website. So let me know if the audio sounds okay, if it's too loud, if it sounds okay. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. We're talking about public domain and copyright law. So in the United States, for a long time, uh, there were specific lengths of copyright law, and the owners had the opportunity to register their work, and the copyright could be renewed, and it's all extraordinarily complicated. But a really good rule of thumb is 95 years. So for most creative works that we're going to talk about today, the rule is after 95 years, the maximum time that they stay under copyright is 95 years, except for recordings. So recordings of music are 100 years in many cases. I am not an expert, so please do consult patent, trademark, copyright attorney. But I'm really talking about how we can get and use this information in our research. So here in the United States, again, this is about United States, the law, of course, was to benefit the creator. But in reality, the creator over time, the owner of the license over time, excuse me, became big companies, big corporations. We're going to talk about Disney quite a few times today. And so Disney and other big corporations, usually film studios, recording studios, want to hold on to their intellectual property, these works of creativity that someone else created sometimes, but they purchased. They want to hold on to them as long as they possibly can. And so there's always something in the works to extend copyright. Right now, 95 years sounds really good. And let's just keep it at 95 years. I think if it's any longer than 95 years, it's really not fair to the public at large. And why does the public at large have an interest in art? Well, because there are tax benefits, there are endowments to those who create art. Not in all cases, but as a society, as a culture, we need to benefit from these important works. And so 95 years seems like a good amount of time. But we're always on the lookout for these big corporations that want to hold on to their IP. So just a quick diversion here to talk about Disney a little bit. Mickey Mouse, the original Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie, came out of copyright a few years ago. But the Disney Corporation periodically redesigns Mickey Mouse so that future iterations of the character look different. And the current iteration of the character is still under copyright. So you can't create something using Mickey Mouse as he is today. But you can create something using Steamboat Willie as he was over 95 years ago. Let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about some of the cool things. And you can see here, this is the Duke University Law School website. If you Google Public Domain Day 2026 Duke, you'll get to this website and all of the great resources that are here, including the prior Public Domain Day information and a lot of information about what is copyright and trademark law, and digging deep into some of the most popular works that are coming out of copyright. I'm going to focus on just a few on this page, and then I want to talk about some items that are not on this page that some of the websites and news reports have completely forgotten about, and they're really rich for our research. But on this page, you can see top left there, one of my favorite movies and my favorite movie from 1930, All Quiet on the Western Front, an absolutely fantastic film. There's been a remake. There were 2 remakes actually, but this is the original. The book was written a few years earlier. The book came out of copyright a few years ago. This is the film. And so now the film is out of copyright. The Marx Brothers Animal Crackers, an absolute, uh, I guess, bellwether of early comedy. And then you have some characters there in the middle. Betty Boop. I don't think many folks know who she is today. Maybe they do. Betty Boop on the right, and Pluto, whose name was originally Rover, on the left, a Disney property. Both of those are out of copyright. Books. The Maltese Falcon is out of copyright now. And book/character, Murder at the Vicarage, Agatha Christie, at her absolute finest, and the first appearance of Miss Marple. So Miss Marple, as a character, is out of copyright. Now, there are plenty more Miss Marple murder mysteries. That's 4 M's in a row. Miss Marple murder mysteries that are still in copyright. And so they can't be used. Comic strip, you see Blondie and Dagwood down there at the bottom. You see Nancy Drew, another character who had her first appearance in 1930. the classic children's book, The Little Engine That Could, and many, many songs. I don't see on this little collage here, Sweet Georgia Brown, the theme tune of the Harlem Globetrotters, which would be like automatic copyright takedown if you used it, hummed it, whistled it. It is now out of copyright. So Sweet Georgia Brown, Georgia on My Mind, Yes Sir, That's My Baby. Those are out of copyright. So you can sing those songs, you can play them, you can put them on your YouTube videos. They're out of copyright now. I'm going to stop sharing this page right now. And I'm going to pull up some works that haven't gotten a lot of attention when we're talking about Public Domain Day today and being released into the public domain. Magazine covers and the amazing artwork in the 1930s and before. Remember, everything before 1930 is also released into the public domain. Look at this amazing artwork. This is now in the public domain. This is a cover of Vogue from September 29th, 1930. So again, why is all this important to your research? If you're a historian, if you're looking into society and culture, if you're researching your own family's history, why on earth is this important? Because this tells the full story. So if your great grandma was interested in fashion, she may have seen this cover of Vogue. You may even have seen it in her house. You can copy it. You can include it in your family's history. Vogue wasn't the only magazine. There were many. This was the heyday of magazines and magazine art. It's truly an accomplishment that some of these artists produced such beautiful works week after week or month after month, kind of akin to the comic strips where, the artist is producing multiple panels, every single week, which is pretty amazing. And comic strips also fall under this same law. And so comic strips prior to uh, 1931, but in 1930 are now released into the public domain. So this is a Vogue. You can see the very Art Deco-y, Art Nouveau flavor. And there are many of these covers. This is just one. The Saturday Evening Post, an absolute American icon. Now, this particular picture is not a Norman Rockwell. This was painted by another illustrator, Alan Foster. You can kind of see his name down there, sort of near the bottom right side of the illustration. But there are many Norman Rockwells, Alan Foster, and other illustrators who made amazing covers for the Saturday Evening Post all throughout 1930. Those are now in the public domain. This character of American art, this is really these specific Saturday Evening Post covers created a whole style of American art, a whole category of its own. The original illustrations are very prized among collectors, and particularly the Norman Rockwell pictures. This is this is just, in the Depression. This isn't post-Depression. This is in the heart of the Depression in America. And so on the Saturday Evening Post, you're going to see bright colors, but sometimes sad faces in some of the people that are captured in the illustrations. I chose this one because this is an awfully happy illustration here with the grandpa. I'm imagining grandpa and grandson who are flying down a snow-covered hill. I think that's pretty cool. I mentioned it earlier. Sweet Georgia Brown. I'm not going to hum it. I'm not going to whistle it. It's for whistling, but it's the theme tune or the theme song used for the Harlem Globetrotters. And the reason why I can't say and other places because the Harlem Globetrotters kind of grabbed hold of it. It's a great tune. It is out of copyright. So you can use it, you can sing it, you can hum it, you can share it. I mentioned Agatha Christie, one of my favorite authors. I so admire her work. She is the grande dame of mystery. She wrote meticulous stories, and her first with Miss Marple as the main character is The Murder at the Vicarage. I like this story. All of her stories involve many of her stories, I should say. Many of her stories, Miss Marple's stories, involve local scandal, tea and scandal, as they call it. The unassuming vicar, housekeeper, old spinster, and all the stories and all the skeletons in the closets come out in these really amazingly spun tales. This is the first of the Miss Marple stories, so we can expect to see more year after year as other works are brought into the public domain. John Philip Sousa, an absolute legend in American composing. John Philip Sousa wrote marches. And this march, the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, was released in 1930, I believe. It's either 1926 or 1930, because as I mentioned, music has a different rule. I think it's only sound recordings that go 100 years. So this one is in the public domain now. John Philip Sousa. So again, why do we care? Why do we care about all this stuff as historians, beyond just a matter of interest? Well, think about those ancestors that you're researching and think about how you want to tell a very full story about their lives. What can you add to the story that adds some interest? What can you add to the story beyond the dates and the places of the births and the deaths and the baptisms? And, it's all important, but it doesn't tell that story. If you tried to write a story just using those facts, every story you tell would be exactly the same. So and so was born on this date in this city. Her parents were so and so and so and so. She went to school here. She got married. She had kids and she died. Without the color of life in terms of art and hobbies and music and sports and the weather and travel and vacations and world events and all of the things that make for a much richer story, that story you tell about your ancestor might be pretty boring. Wouldn't you rather dig in to what your ancestor read or the films that were in the cinema when your ancestor was a teenager or a young adult? I do. I'm very fortunate to have letters written by my grandfather and my great-grandfather. And hidden in those letters are little hints like songs, names of songs that they liked, um, films that they saw. And some of them are not famous. The names of some of the films I had never heard of, but I certainly looked into them. It helps me tell the richer story. Art is really important that way. Um, it reflects our culture. It reflects what was important to people to take their minds off of a world war, a depression, another world war, especially around this time. Here's another of those Saturday Evening Post covers. This one's called Wet Paint. And I just love the action in this film, in this cover, this illustration. This artist, she's just flying. She's lost her beret. She's running to get that painting somewhere. And again, bright, beautiful colors. During the Depression, something really important for our society to keep morale up. And here's more sheet music. This is Yes, Sir, That's My Baby. I can hum it. I can think of it. I think I know how it goes. But not only the sheet music, not only the rights to play it, but again, look at that cover art. So when you think about things that are published and think about a magazine, think about the advertisements in a magazine or a newspaper. Think about this sheet music. It's not just the music. This absolutely beautiful cover art may have been produced in 1930, or it may have been produced earlier than 1930. And so that cover art is also something that we now benefit from being in the public domain. I do want to take just a minute on photography. And fashion photography, of course, illustrated here, but photography of all types falls under the same copyright rules here in the United States. Sculpture, paintings, other works of art all fall in to the same group. Released here today from 1930. One important work of sculpture, the World Cup, as in the World Cup, football match, soccer match, the actual World Cup as a work of art came out of copyright today. So if someone wanted to reproduce and sell little World Cups, they could do that. There are a couple of other important works of art, which I'm not going to go over here. I'm working on a full-length video to share here on this channel to go over some of the not the same old items that we're going to see on every news broadcast and other YouTube channels. We're not going to talk about Betty Boop to an extent. We're not going to talk about Pluto. We may just touch on the Maltese Falcon. We may just touch on Cimarron and a couple of the other films. But I do want to talk about the gems in magazines, newspapers, newsprint. The real hidden items that folks aren't looking for. Plays. I did want to mention plays, by the way. Private Lives by Noel Coward, also out of copyright today. I think I mentioned The Little Engine That Could, the children's book. A couple of other ones, Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh. Let's see, any others that I recognize. The Conquest of Happiness by Bertrand Russell. I know the name Bertrand Russell, but I don't know The Conquest of Happiness. I mentioned Blondie and Dagwood. In addition to All Quiet on the Western Front and Animal Crackers, I just now mentioned Cimarron and a few other films of note. Now, there were many films released every year. We only tend to remember a handful. The musical compositions, in addition to Georgia on My Mind and Yes, Sir, That's My Baby, is I Got Rhythm. That's a huge one by the Gershwins. Also, I've Got a Crush on You by the Gershwins and Embraceable You. Wow, okay, the Gershwins really had a good year in 1930. Dream a Little Dream of Me, On the Sunny Side of the Street, Body and Soul, all out of copyright today. And then sound recordings. So it looks like sound recordings are the ones that are treated a little more specially. Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen by Marian Anderson. The St. Louis Blues by Bessie Smith. Fascinating Rhythm by the Paul Whiteman Orchestra. There have been many, many versions of Fascinating Rhythm over the years. This is so for sound recordings, it's the specific recording by the particular artist in 1930. I'll See You in My Dreams. All released today. And then in terms of works of art, composition with red, blue, and yellow, a painting. The World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, was created by Abel Lafleur, and it's called the Jules Rimet Cup. And then many, many photographs, particularly for Vogue and other magazines. Well, this was my test stream today. I'll listen back to it. I'll leave it up if it sounds half decent. If not, I'll take it down. But I will have a long form video edited at some point, probably in a week or two. I thought it would be this weekend, but that is not going to happen. How will you celebrate Public Domain Day? I have a recommendation. Dig a little bit into history in 1930, wherever you live or wherever your ancestors lived in 1930. And then find newspapers from that area. Find the local newspaper, flip to the cinema section, see what was playing in the theaters in 1930. And those films, because all of them would have been released in 1930 or prior to 1930, are now in the public domain. So where can you go to find all this amazing stuff other than just Googling? The United States Library of Congress not only has the National Film Registry, but it also has the National Jukebox. I had no idea. And so you can find information about works of about music, recordings, and about film. And usually you can find on the website a place to find a free copy. Wikipedia also has links to free versions of films that are out of copyright. I don't know if they have 1930s up yet. I had done some research for Film Club, and I forget which film it was, but there was one film that we've had thus far that is either out of copyright or for some reason has a version. Oh, I know what it was. I was doing a look back 100 years. So I was looking at all the films released in 1925. And now I'll look at all the films released in 1926. And I was able to find on Wikipedia several links to repositories that now make those films publicly available. You wouldn't think about film from 1925. I guess I was surprised that there were so many films available in 1925. Pretty amazing. And then works of art, obviously, just Google. You'll find, yesterday I went to was it Carnegie Mellon? I'm not sure. One of the art galleries. And interestingly enough, the place where you would have gone to see a particular work of art online, they had actually taken it down already. So they must have been already, maybe, I hope, adjusting the website so that there's not a big watermark splashed across one of these works of art. As for the magazines, in some cases, like for the Saturday Evening Post, you can join the Saturday Evening Post. I did. I subscribed yesterday. I think it cost $17 so that I could get copies or, digital access to all the past covers. And that's where I pulled those covers. Fair use, fair use. Where I pulled those covers yesterday. I was one day early. I was one day early preparing. But today is public domain day. So they're in the public domain today. But in addition to the Saturday Evening Post, Vogue, I believe, also has a website with the past covers. We mentioned Time Magazine and Life Magazine. I forgot to mention Fortune. So Fortune, the financial magazine, was also around in 1930 and has some amazing artwork on their covers and inside the magazine. So if you can't tell, I'm highly, highly recommending the magazines. Wherever you are in time in your research, remember to tell the full story. Whether you're looking back yesterday, looking back a year, or looking back 95 awesome years to 1930, tell a good story, tell a full story. Remember to cite your sources. We started talking about how these laws came out of really common sense and common courtesy. It's common sense that we want to give credit to those who created works of art, and it's common courtesy to allow them to decide how it's used. Remember, even for these works that are now out of copyright, remember to credit your source, credit the creator, give the appropriate attribution, and cite your sources. This is Sandy. This is Primary Sources. This is my very first live stream from the desk. I'll do better next time. Have a fantastic week. Have a wonderful 2026. Good luck with all of your research and take care.